Welcome back to our channel. Thank you for being here. This is not just another story, it's a journey of survival, love, and quiet strength. Stay until the end to witness moments that may remind you of your own past. If you're new here, this channel is where real emotions live. Let's begin a new chapter together with Dieu Han and though still chasing hope. Dieu Han sat quietly as the storm outside echoed the one inside her heart. She had finally brought Yen home, but peace was still far away. The shadows of danger hadn't disappeared, they were just waiting. Tom was safe in her arms, but her eyes remained wide open. Every sound made her flinch, every breeze felt like a warning. Was it over, or just beginning? Could they rest, or were they just being watched from the dark? The night whispered questions only tomorrow could answer. That night, Dieu Han stayed awake, tending to Yen's fever and watching over Tom. But far from them, someone else was moving Diep and had dropped everything to help. Somewhere in the shadows, danger was still searching, still hunting. What if the one they feared found them again? Would they survive it a second time? The silence in the house wasn't comfort, it was tension. A calm before another storm. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell. Every click from you helps us continue telling stories like this, of courage, pain, and survival. Be part of this journey. Follows Dieu Han's path as she protects her child, searches for the truth, and faces the past she never asked for. Stay with us. After thanking the motorbike driver, then made his way back under the dim glow of streetlights. His heart was calm but alert. He wasn't just returning to a house, he was returning to protect the people he now cared about most. Dieu Han, little Tom, and fragile Yen were all under one roof, finally safe, for now. Thang chose not to sleep. He took his place outside the door, a silent guardian, ready for anything. The night was quiet, but then remained on alert. Then, out of the darkness, a man appeared, stepping closer with an aggressive stance. Then immediately stood up and blocked the path, voice steady but firm. He didn't know who the man was, but something about his presence felt wrong. In this house behind him were 3 lives he had promised to protect. There was no room for hesitation. Whatever this stranger's intent, Fan was ready. If Dieu Han hadn't rushed out just in time, this could have ended in disaster. The stranger was tense, his fists clenched, ready for a fight. Fan stood still, unsure if this was the danger he had been guarding against. But Dieu Han's voice cut through the tension like a thread of light in the dark. Her words saved everyone from what could have been a terrible mistake. She quickly explained everything, that Fan was a friend. Her words were firm, yet warm. Slowly, the tension drained from the man's shoulders. He lowered his hands. Dieu Han had once again protected those around her, not just with strength, but with understanding. Without saying another word, Dieu Han turned and quietly walked back into the house. The night seemed to settle again, like a curtain slowly falling after a tense scene. Fan stood outside for a moment longer, watching the shadows move beneath the trees. There was peace again, but only for now. In this fragile world they lived in, calm could vanish in an instant. But for now, she was safe. Fan turned to Mr. N, his voice low but firm. He said he wanted to take Dieu Han and her child back to her hometown immediately, afraid danger could strike again at any moment. But mother.I placed a steady hand on his shoulder, his gaze calm yet serious. He said, "Not now, this wasn't the right moment to make such decisions. There were too many unknowns, and right now, they needed rest more than plans." Yen slowly opened her eyes, the world still blurry and distant. But the gentle hands holding her and the warmth of the room reminded her she was safe. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her lips trembling. Dieu Han held her tighter, whispering that everything was all right. In that fragile moment, Yen wasn't alone anymore. She didn't need to run. She didn't need to hide. For now, love was stronger than fear, and that was enough. Then quietly brought over the warm bowl of porridge, his eyes filled with care. He had seen enough suffering to know how precious this moment was. Slowly, he fed her spoon by spoon, not rushing anything. Yen's eyes welled with tears, not from the fever, but from gratitude. In this small room, under a thin roof, strangers had become family. Life had knocked her down again and again, but this time, hands had reached out to catch her. And she let them. Dieu Han watched as Yen ate slowly, her chest rising with each fragile breath. For so long, she had been the one needing help. Now, she was the one offering it. Her heart ached watching her friend so weak, yet a quiet strength bloomed inside her. No matter how dark the road had been, this moment of light made it all worth it. Love wasn't loud, it was in the silence, the spoons, the shared tears. It was here, and it was real. Yen opened her eyes slowly, her voice soft but full of emotion. She looked at each person beside her and whispered, "Thank you. All of you. You've been so kind to me." Her lips trembled slightly, and her eyes welled up. She had been through so much, yet in this moment, she felt something she hadn't in a long time: safety. It was overwhelming. She gripped Dieu Han's hand tightly, like clinging to a fragile thread of hope that hadn't snapped. mother.I knelt beside her, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "You don't have to say anything now," he said softly. "Just rest. Don't worry about anything anymore." His voice was calm but resolute, like a promise forged in silence. Yen looked at him with tears that held both fear and relief. Under the dim light of the porch, two men stood silently, one with arms crossed, the other with eyes scanning the shadows. They didn't speak much, but their presence was steady. Like pillars in a storm, inside the house were three souls too fragile to face danger again. Out here, they carried the weight of protection, quiet and shaken. Every rustling leaf raised their guard. Every breeze was a question, but they stayed, because sometimes love isn't loud. It's simply being there, no matter how long the night. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was filled with unspoken worries, sleepless nights, and silent promises. They didn't need words to understand each other. Both knew what was at stake. If trouble came, it would meet them first. They stood guard not out of obligation, but because they chose to. Because they believed no harm should reach the ones inside, not while they were breathing. And so, in the thick of night, with hearts steady and feet rooted, they kept watch. Like shadows holding the line between safety and fear. The two men had fallen asleep while guarding the house. Their backs leaned against the bamboo wall. The night had been long, filled with silence and watchfulness. As morning light filtered through the leaves, little Tom's footsteps stirred them. He ran toward them with innocent curiosity, unaware of the tension that had kept them awake. Dieu Han gently placed her hand on Tom's shoulder, nodding toward the two men. She didn't need to say anything. Her eyes spoke gratitude and understanding. She stepped closer to Mr. and quietly asked if they could talk for a moment. Mr. glanced at Then, who gave a brief nod and turned away. Whatever this conversation was, it belonged to them. They walked slowly toward the back garden, under the canopy of banana trees. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence was full, heavy with emotion. They stopped near the fence, where the world seemed quieter. Dieu Han looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. She didn't cry, but there was something behind her eyes that had already bled tears. "Mister," and reached for a leaf, tore it gently, and let it fall. Some wounds are passed through silence, and this one, whatever it was, had weight. He didn't interrupt her. He simply stood beside her, steady and unshaken. When they returned, Tom was tugging at Then's sleeve, asking for breakfast. Yen had fallen back asleep, breathing softer now. The morning felt fragile, as if the peace could break with a single wrong move. But something was different. There was unity, and unspoken understanding bound them. Murren glanced at Dieu Han with quiet reassurance. She nodded slightly. They were ready for whatever came next. The two men stood side by side, exchanging soft jokes to ease the tension. Their smiles were real, but their eyes remained vigilant. Even in this quiet morning, shadows of danger still lingered. They both knew the calm could vanish in an instant. Between laughter, they shared their worries about the women inside, the threats outside. It wasn't just kindness that connected them now, but duty. They were strangers no more. They were protectors, standing for something bigger than themselves. Before parting, They exchanged phone numbers, just in case, if anything happened again, they needed to be able to act fast. Trust wasn't something given easily, but it had been earned, mister. And patted Than's shoulder firmly, a silent promise in his gesture, then nodded, gripping his phone tighter. To men, once strangers, now bound by a shared purpose, they didn't say much more. But the understanding between them was stronger than words. Yen had regained color in her cheeks, her eyelids no longer trembling. The room, once thick with silence, now breathed with quiet joy. Dieu Han held her hand tightly, unable to hide the tears. Tom giggled, unaware he was part of something fragile and beautiful. Mr. and exhaled long and slow, as if releasing nights of worry. This wasn't just recovery, it was proof. They had survived another storm, and in that storm's quiet wake, love, raw and real, stood stronger than any danger ever could. They didn't speak much, just exchanged looks full of quiet gratitude. Yen held Dieu Han's hands tightly, as if passing on a kind of strength only women who've suffered understand. There were no promises, no plans. Just hearts that had touched and would never forget. The porch creaked under their steps. And behind them, memories lingered like incense smoke, faint, warm, and sacred. Tom was nestled in Than's arms, his tiny hand waving goodbye with innocent joy. He didn't understand much, but his wave carried warmth that softened the heaviness in their hearts. For the adults, every step from that doorway felt like leaving behind something precious. Mer and gave a silent nod, his eyes steady and kind. Dieu Han glanced back once more, memorizing everything, this house, these people, and the fleeting feeling of being safe, even if just for a while. As they walked away, the sounds of birds and rustling leaves could not silence the quiet ache in their hearts. But it was time. Danger was still out there, and home, even if uncertain, was where hope could start again. Each goodbye carried a prayer. Each tear held both sorrow and gratitude. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can give someone is a safe goodbye, and that was what they gave each other today. But is this really the end of their struggle? Or just a quiet pause before another storm? Dieu Han may have left this place behind, but danger doesn't ask for permission, it follows without warning. Can one act of kindness truly shield a family from what lies ahead? Or will fate demand more sacrifices? The answers remain unknown, but their hearts are ready for whatever comes next. Thank you for watching this episode. If Dieu Han's journey touched your heart, please click like and subscribe to Dieu Han RV. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chapter. Every view, every share helps us bring more human stories to light. Your support means the world to us and to Dieu Han. Stay with us, because the next step in her journey may change everything.